Hello and welcome to episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Monday, February 6th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is in fact Monday, February 6th here today. Super Bowl week is here. It is officially upon us. We are less than a week out from Super Bowl 57 in Glendale, Phoenix, Arizona. Super fired up for the game. Always an exciting week leading up to the game. Obviously, you got all the interviews and all the hype and anticipation. You got the NFL honors, shortly later this week. I think Thursday night will be the NFL honors. So always a great time. Always a lot of hype. Always a lot of talk. Always a lot of conversation surrounding the Super Bowl. It was a very, very packed weekend behind us of sports. And now, obviously, we get ready for the final football Sunday of the season. Coming up this weekend, Super Bowl Sunday. And that will be the last football Sunday of the year until September of next season when it all begins again and we get ready for the 2023 regular season. And after this week, it will obviously be the offseason will really start to heat up, and I think you'll start to hear a lot more news about Rodgers, a lot more news about Carr. Once the season's over, and players start to really discuss with other teams and, everyone, every team officially heads off into the offseason, you start to see some moves being made. So a big couple weeks coming up. We got a lot to get to today on the program. There's nothing, not much time to talk about, the intro here. A lot to get to. Obviously, it's Super Bowl week. I want to get into the Eagles and Chiefs today, their offensive overview. So my plan for this week is today's Monday. I'm going to give you the offensive overview for both the Chiefs and the Eagles. I'm going to give you some offense, some their stats, their numbers, some team leaders, talk a little about the offense for both teams. Wednesday, I'll do the defense for both the Chiefs and the Eagles. And then Friday, I'll do my game preview. I'll get you ready, give you the keys, give you all the numbers, kind of put them all into one video, get you my preview, and send you off into the weekend with my game pick and get ready for Super Bowl 57 on Sunday. So it's Super Bowl week, so got a lot of football talk to get to. We'll get to that first. Second topic of the day, if it wasn't Super Bowl week, this would be what I was starting the show with. But Kyrie Irving traded to the Mavericks. It is officially over. The Kyrie era in Brooklyn is done. I'll talk about it. I'll get into the trade. I'll get into what the Nets got, how I feel, and why I think there has to be more moves coming for the Brooklyn Nets in terms of what they got in return for Kyrie Irving. We'll also look back on Kyrie's tumultuous tenure here and where it went wrong. And is Kevin Durant going to get traded? Is this officially the collapsing of it all, or the Nets going to build around Kevin Durant? And kind of how does the rest of this all play out? Thursdays, these couple days going into Thursday are big for the Brooklyn Nets in terms they got to make more trades. And I would assume the trade that they made yesterday involving Kyrie shows us, I think tells us as fans, tells the NBA that they got more moves to be made. There are more moves. They're going to do what's best. They're going to try to get the best possible roster around Kevin Durant, because I think there's a general feeling around the Nets right now that this is it. This is it. After this deadline, this is the team you're rolling with. You're going to roll with it into the playoffs. And I truly believe this is the end for Kevin Durant, too. I think he'll probably play out the rest of the year. And I think in the offseason, the Nets are going to look to probably either trade him or he's going to request out, and the Nets might blow this thing up. So I think the Nets, what they're going to do is Sean Marks, and they have to, these next 3 days are pivotal. Find the pieces, find what Kevin Durant wants, get this team as the best, get this team to the best talent possible, and make your final push, because I think this is it. I think this is it for Kevin Durant. I think it's it for Ben Simmons. I think after this offseason, championship or no championship, this will probably be the end for the Brooklyn Nets and this supposed super team that we tried to form and blew up right in our face. So we'll get into that as well. We'll also get into the New York sports update. The Nets are actually on tonight against the Clippers. Rangers are back. Islanders are back off of the NHL All-Star break. So good time in sports. Kentucky also got the win this weekend over Florida. And that's what's on tap. So with all that being said, this is the Bubbs on Sports podcast, and let's get right into it. So as I mentioned, it's Super Bowl week. Exciting times. Super fired up for the game, obviously on Sunday. You look forward to the week. Obviously Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you got all the stories. You got player interviews. You got a ton of, in Phoenix, they'll have Radio Row where all the different radio shows will be there. You'll have cool interviews and stuff to watch. Just a ton of week 2 where you're talking to people. It's just even people that you don't talk football with. They'll be talking football this week. So it's always a fun time for sports fans in general, whether you're a big football fan, not a football fan, whether you like the teams or you don't like the teams. It's always an exciting week for sports in general. With all the fun stuff that goes on. So today I'm going to give you my offensive overview for the Chiefs and the Eagles. Today I'll get you offensive overview for both the teams. Wednesday, as I mentioned, will be defensive overview. Friday will be my preview. I'll put all the numbers together, give you one big video of me giving you the keys, my preview, and obviously my game pick, which I really still haven't decided on who I'm going to pick this week. I'm not torn on it. I think there's a good chance both teams can get the job done. It will be definitely interesting. A couple things are going to have to come into play, both offensively and defensively, for both these teams in order to get the win. So we'll start off with the Chiefs, then we'll go to the Eagles here. Chiefs, obviously, we all know, dominant offensive team, led by Patrick Mahomes, heavy pass offense. They lost Tyreek Hill in the offseason. We all kind of went into this season wondering, how would this Chiefs team react? How would Mahomes react? Would they be the same team? Would they come out and be as dominant as they've always been? Or would they feel the loss of Tyreek Hill? They still had Kelsey, but we all kind of questioned going into the season, how would teams cover Kelsey? Are they going to double team Kelsey? Were they going to put more attention on Kelsey and he's not open as much, and Mahomes was gonna have to force to throw it to Scantling and force to throw it to guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and guys like that. And we all kind of had questions about that going into the season, and we got all the answers. Kelsey had a dominant year. Juju Smith-Schuster had a very solid season. Valdez-Scantling had a solid season. They used the running backs a lot in the passing game, specifically Jerick McKinnon. This Chiefs team without Tyreek Hill made it work all year long, especially in the 2 playoff games. And they have not had any offensive drop-off whatsoever. Mahomes was dominant this year, is in the MVP conversation. They are still one of the best offense in football, and they answered all of our questions. So overall in the season, in the regular season, the Chiefs were total first in offense. Passing, they were first. Rushing, they were 20th, and they were the number 1 scoring offense in football. This team scores a ton of points. They come at you. They hit you early. They score early. They're going to convert on third down and longs. This is a type of team that, again, we know this about the Chiefs. We know this about Patrick Mahomes. They are a type of team that once they get ahead, there's really no looking back. They're just dominant. Kelsey. Secondaries really struggle against this team, even without Tyreek Hill. And that's a lot of, Mahomes throwing it on the run, getting it out into the passing game, or getting it out, on the run and getting it to different receivers and spreading the ball around. I mean, McKinnon has had a dominant year for the Kansas City Chiefs. And their one weakness is their rushing. But their rushing game, which, to be honest, again, you don't need a dominant rushing team when your quarterback throws for 5,250 yards in a season. You don't need a dominant rushing game when your quarterback throws 41 touchdowns. So Isaiah Pacheco led the team this year with 830 yards. They didn't need a ton of rushing, and that's what you go into this Super Bowl. That's what's so different about both these teams. The Chiefs. And again, don't get me wrong, Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback, and he's in the MVP conversation, and he's had a very good season. And believe me, him and A.J. Brown have had a great year, and I'll talk about them here in a little bit. But the Chiefs are a heavy pass team that's number 1 in passing, and the Eagles are a heavy run team. So 2 different dynamics when you look at both these offense. Chiefs, pass. Eagles, it's run, especially in the playoffs. They've barely needed to use Jalen Hurts this postseason. It's been run. And, I mean, there was times, I go back to that Giants game. They had a drive where they ran it like 6 times in a row. You don't see that very often. The Eagles do that. The Chiefs aren't that type of team. Heavy pass. Patrick Mahomes showed no signs of struggling without Tyreek Hill this season. So regular season team leaders, passing yards, it was Patrick Mahomes. He had 5,250, 308.8 he averaged per game. I talk about this with Mahomes. I mean, he's a generational talent. He's special. He's somebody that, again, we talk about Brady, where all in all, in terms of worth ethic, in terms of just his overall play, championships, he's the GOAT. But I said it a couple days ago, like when all said and done with Patrick Mahomes, there will be things that he does. There will be things that he does in terms of talent that there's a good chance we'll never see again. We're witnessing a special type of talent, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, not many quarterbacks out there can lose their number one receiver in the offseason. And Kelsey's still dominant, but can lose their number one receiver in the offseason still. Let's just put it like it is. And still go out and throw for over 5,000 yards. Not many guys can do that. I mean, Rodgers is great, and again, as Jet fan, you want him. We all want him as Jets fans, right? But he struggled this year without Devontae Adams, and it showed. Now again, I'm telling Patrick Mahomes still had Kelsey. I get that, but he was still to throw for over 5,000 yards. To not see a little bit of a drop off is crazy, considering how much Tyreek Hill. I mean, he actually threw for more yards this season than he did last year. He was first in passing yards, first in passing touchdowns, first in QBR this year. Patrick Mahomes is dominant. And he showed that this season, even without Tyreek Hill, which, again, was the big question going in. Rushing yards, Isaiah Pacheco led the team, as I mentioned, 830. He averaged 48.8 yards per game, rushing yards per game. Again, this is a team that they were just not, again, they did not run the ball a ton. They didn't. Combined as a total team, they ran for 1,970 yards. The three main running backs being Pacheco, Allaire, and McKinnon, 830, 302, 291. Again, McKinnon was big in the passing game. They've used their running backs a little bit more this postseason. I mean, Pacheco's had a really nice postseason. I thought they would use them more against Cincinnati. And I think going into this game, with Mahomes' ankle being a concern against Cincinnati, I thought they would run it a lot more, but this Chiefs team likes to use their running backs a lot more in the receiving game. Again, McKinnon was actually fourth on the team in receiving yards. He had 512, and Pacheco only had 130, but he still had 13 catches. Like, he still can be utilized. McKinnon utilized a lot in the passing game. Again, Pacheco more that run guy, but they use their running backs in different ways, and obviously, Allaire went down this season and is done, but Pacheco really, he earned his spot. Like, again, out of Rutgers, small name guy, not a huge name coming out of college. He has really proven that he can be a solid, back in the NFL. And he's done it so far in the postseason too. Receiving yards, obviously Travis Kelce led the team, 1,338. He averaged 78.7 receiving yards per game. Best tight end football. And again, when all is said and done, I think Mahomes and Kelce will be one of the better. Forget tight end receiver, tight end quarterback combos. They will be one of the better just combo. They would just be one of the better combos of all time. Not even just tight end quarterback combos. We're talking even putting them up there with other tight end or other receiver quarterback combos. That's how dominant Kelce has been. And again, Kelce is a guy too, and we saw this too in the postseason where Mahomes late in games, third down and 10s, Kelce's there. And that's something where defenses have not had any answer for the Chiefs. Always big spots in games, Kelce's open. No team has found an answer for Travis Kelce. And again, this year, we thought if there was a year where Kelce was going to see a drop-off, you would maybe think it's this season because defenses would put more attention to him now that Tyreek Hill's gone. That clearly was not the case. Also, credit to Juju Smith-Schuster. He had a solid year. He had over 900 yards this year. So it wasn't like he just came in and was this average receiver. He was pretty solid this season. He finished with 933 receiving yards and 78 catches. So he was still solid too. But Kelce obviously is the dominant one. All right, so now we go to the postseason numbers here. Again, you could take these with a grain of salt. These numbers are a little skewed because each team has played different amount of games. But when you combine all of the postseason teams, all 14 of them, this is where they come out. Now, again, like the Chargers, for example, or I think it's the Bucks, I think, have like the number one offense of the postseason because they had like 300-something yards in their first game and they averaged that or whatever. So these numbers are a little skewed. But in terms of postseason, when you line them up with all other 14 teams, they're fifth in total offense, fourth in passing offense, ninth in rushing offense, scoring is fifth. Again, obviously their passing is a strength. It still has been, even with Mahomes with the ankle issue. They've still done a lot more in the passing game. Again, I thought against Cincinnati they were going to run a lot more, which they didn't. But again, I kind of how the flow of the game went. And I thought Mahomes, considering, I didn't think Mahomes looked too bad on the ankle. There was some points in the game where he definitely was limping and you could tell was in some pain. But all in all, I thought Mahomes did a good job against Cincinnati considering the ankle was definitely an issue. Yards per game. Oh, by the way, regular season. I forgot about this. So regular season, they're averaging 413.6 yards per game. Pass yards per game, 297.8. Rush yards per game, 115.9. And they're putting up 29.2 points per game in the regular season. So in the postseason, again, yards per game, 359.5. Pass yards per game, 266.5. Rush yards per game, 93.0. Pass yards per game, 25, or points per game, 25. So they're putting up 25 points per game here. Less than 100 rushing yards per game, which is crazy. When you look at the Eagles, it's insane the amount of rush yards they're putting up. But again, like you see, 297.8 pass yards per game, right? That was the Chiefs' regular season. You look at their pass yards here, 266.5. So even with Mahomes' ankle in the postseason, it still was an issue. Pass yards were a huge factor. And they're putting up 359.5 total yards of offense. That is insane. I mean, this is a team that is putting up, 300 in the regular season, was putting up 413 yards of total offense a game. That's wild. I mean, you don't see that very often. And in some postseason team leaders, passing yards, Mahomes, he's got 521 passing yards this season. He's averaging 260.5 a game. Rushing yards is Pacheco, 121 rushing yards. He's averaging 60.5 yards per game. And then Kelsey still leads the team with receiving yards this postseason. He's got 176 receiving yards and 88 receiving yards per game. Valdez-Scantling is right behind him with 122. He has seven catches. He's actually averaging 17 yards per catch. He's got 2 touchdowns. So Kelsey and Scantling have been the 2 big ones this postseason for the Kansas City Chiefs in the passing game. All right, so that's the Chiefs' offensive overview. High-flying offense, throw the ball a lot, get Kelsey involved. Mahomes is insane. That's basically the gist of what they got. And you look at their numbers. I mean, during the regular season, they were over 400 yards of offense per game, which is absurd. And this is where it gets interesting because this Eagles secondary is really good. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this team stops. They were first in passing defense this season. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the secondary, guys like Darius Slay, guys like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, how they step up against this Chiefs passing defense. Or passing offense. Again, I look at this game, and unlike last year, you could look at many different keys. I think this game, it only comes down to a couple things. With the way, these two teams are dominant. The Chiefs are dominant passing. Eagles are dominant rushing. And they both have their strengths and weaknesses on defense. I think this game's going to come down to, a couple things. It's not going to be this list of 15 things that need to happen. 1-2 things go one team's way in this Super Bowl. I think that could be the difference in a win and a loss. So now we go to the Eagles offense. So regular season, again, the opposite, really, of the Chiefs, where they're a dominant. They were more balanced in the regular season. Hurts had a very good season. They were more balanced in the regular season than they are in the postseason. So far in the postseason, and part of it is they won 38-7 against the Giants and 31-7 against the Niners. 31-7 against the Niners. So they haven't really had to put games and put big moments in on Hurts. They've been able to run the ball. They've been able to get out to early leads. They played the Niners without a quarterback for the majority of the game after Purdy got hurt. So they haven't really needed to use Hurts much this postseason. But during the regular season, the Eagles, again, run-heavy team. They run a lot more, but they were still top 10 in passing offense. I think Hurts this season, he was dominant, don't get me wrong. But I think, you look at the numbers and you watch him play, you watch the Eagles play, and you're like, man, this team's insane when it comes to rushing offense. But people forget, Hurts had a dominant year in terms of passing. He had a very good season when it comes to passing offense. So I think this Eagles team, again, what makes them really good, and I think what gives them one advantage over the Chiefs is Hurts can beat you with his legs and his arm. They can also beat you just on the ground. The Chiefs can't really beat you with their run game. Now, they have the best quarterback in football in Patrick Mahomes that can beat you, and that's a great thing to have. But this Eagles team's got a couple different things they can do, and we've seen that with their offense. They can win a game. Hurts can win a game with his legs. He can also win a game with his arm. He can win a game throwing it to A.J. Brown. They can also win a game giving the ball to Miles Sanders, giving the ball to Kenneth Gainwell, giving the ball to Boston Scott. And we've seen that so far in the 8 quarters of playoff football that they've played, in the 2 beatdowns that they've had at Lincoln Financial Field, where they've won those 2 games off of really dominant defense and running the ball practically every single play. I mean, let's just tell like it is. Hurts has not had to do much this postseason passing. They've been able to run it, and the Chiefs are going to have to find a way to stop that. But overall, regular season total, they were the third best offense. Passing, they were ninth in passing offense. Again, regular season, Hurts, they were top 10 passing offense. So far in the postseason, Hurts has not had to done nearly that much. Rushing, they were the fifth best rushing offense in football. And scoring, they were the third-ranked scoring offense. So how that compares to the Chiefs, Chiefs had the better total offense. They had the better passing offense. The Eagles had the better rushing offense. Chiefs had the better scoring offense. So mostly in the regular season, the Chiefs had a little bit more of the tilt go their way in terms of the overall, the offensive rankings. But again, postseason so far, the Eagles have dominated. So some other numbers here. Yards per game in the regular season, Eagles are putting up 389.1. Pass yards per game, 241.5. Rush yards per game, 147.6. And points per game, the Eagles are putting up 28.1. So very similar. Again, the Eagles were third in scoring offense. Chiefs were first. Both these teams are more than capable of scoring. So I would expect, again, like something's got to give. Both these teams can score at a high rate. Both these teams can stop opposing offenses at a consistent rate. Something's got to give in the Super Bowl. It will be really interesting. And again, something that sticks out to me, they put up 100. They almost had 150 rushing yards a game in the regular season. Like they can, again, and that was still with 241.5 passing yards per game. This is a team that, Hurts can go out there and throw for 250 yards, right? And then they could still run the ball for 150 yards. That's how this team can do it. They can be that good in both rushing and passing. So regular season team leaders passing yards, it was obviously Jalen Hurts. He had 3,701 passing yards. He averaged 246.1 per game. Rush yards in the regular season was Miles Sanders. He had 1,269. That was 74.6 rush yards per game. And their receiving yards was A.J. Brown. No surprise there. Made the big trade in the offseason. You got to give credit to the Eagles front office. They recognized the need a number one receiver. They brought him in, and he did not disappoint. A.J. Brown, 1,496 receiving yards, which was more than Kelsey. He averaged 88 receiving yards per game this season. A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts were a dominant force. You go to the postseason where, again, I mentioned, it's been run, and it shows. So total, they are again, take these with a grain of salt if you like. It's the numbers are a little skewed because the rankings are a little skewed because you have some teams that only played one game, so they only count those numbers, but they don't count the other games, obviously. So the rankings are a little skewed based off of games played in the postseason. But total, they're 7th. Passing, they're 14th, which is last. Now, I'm not using that as a knock on the Eagles. I'm using more of a compliment to their run game because they were first in rushing, and they're the number one ranked scoring offense in football, or in the postseason. They were the number one scoring offense, and they're the number one rushing offense. So the passing game's not a knock on Hurts. It's more of a compliment to the rushing game. And I want to give you some numbers on this team so far this postseason. So total this postseason, they've ran the ball, they've 88 runs, and they've passed it 49 times. Not many times do you see that. Put that into the Chiefs. The Chiefs have thrown it 80 times, and they've ran it 50 times. So it just shows you the difference. Eagles this postseason, run. Pass or run. It's been run. Chiefs, it's pass. Sorry, messed up. Chiefs pass, Eagles run. That's been the story. And that's what's so, when you look at the numbers, that's what's so cool about these two teams. Like, they're really, like, this postseason, they've been complete opposites. Now, the Chiefs, during the regular season, Eagles were a little bit more balanced, but during the postseason, Eagles have just been all the run. And the Chiefs have, especially against Cincinnati, they've been a lot more pass than I think many of us expected them to be. So yards per game this postseason, Eagles have 342.5 yards per game. Pass yards per game, 134.5. Points per game, 34.5. So they're putting up 30-plus points a game this postseason. In the two games they played, they put up 38 and 31. No surprise there. I saved rush yards for last. The Eagles are averaging, in the two postseason games so far, 208 rush yards per game. I want to say this. If the Eagles rush for 200 yards in the Super Bowl, I don't care what Patrick Mahomes does, the Eagles are going to win because that's been their recipe for success. I mean, 208 rush yards per game. That's insane. I mean, this Eagles, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Miles Sanders is basically the big three. Gainwell, 160 yards, Sanders, 132 yards, and Boston Scott, 53 yards, but he's tied for the lead with 2 touchdowns. 7 rushing touchdowns. Again, 7 rushing touchdowns. They've had 9 touchdowns this postseason offensively. 7 of them have been on the ground, 2 of them in the air. Run, run, run. I've said it all day, and you might think, he's repeating himself. I can't stress enough. The numbers are even crazier. Like, you watch them play, and it's like, man, all this team does is run. You look at the numbers, and it's like, that's even crazier. The fact that they've had 9 offensive touchdowns and 7 of them come on the ground. I mean, and they're putting up 342 yards per game. 208 of those is from the ground. This Eagles team, again, you watch them play, and it's like, we all know they're heavy run, but they kind of play a little bit of an old school type of football where they're just going to ground and pound. That's what they're going to do. And no team's been able to stop them. 88 rushes to 49 passes. Usually it's the opposite. That's not the case with the Eagles. So postseason team leaders, Jalen Hurts lead the team obviously with passing yards, 275. They're, again, 137.5 per game. Rush yards, Kenneth Gainwell. So Miles Sanders actually led the team in the regular season. In the postseason, it's been Kenneth Gainwell. He has 160 rushing yards this postseason. He's averaging 80 yards per game. And receiving yards. In the regular season, it was A.J. Brown. The postseason so far, it's been Devontae Smith. And the leader only has 97 receiving yards. So it's crazy. Kelsey has 176 receiving yards this postseason. That leads the Chiefs. 97 yards is good enough to lead the Eagles. Devontae Smith has 97 yards, 48.5 per game. Dallas Goedert's the next closest. A.J. Brown only has 50 yards. He only has 70 catches for 50 yards. So they have not had to utilize the receivers much, but Devontae Smith does lead the team. If he gets 3 yards in the Super Bowl, he'll be over 100 yards for the postseason, which I think we all expect him to do. So that's my Eagles and Chiefs offensive overview. Wednesday will be the defense. The main takeaway from both these are the Chiefs are they're a very pass-heavy team. Eagles are a very run-heavy team. But I think when you look at this Eagles team and what makes them scary, and the Chiefs, again, like, they're not going to, and this is the one thing about Kansas City, they're not going to come out in the Super Bowl. They're not just going to be able to run it. They're not just going to give the ball to Pacheco 30 times and just say, here, run it. The Eagles have that. The Eagles can do that. They can give the ball to Kenneth Gainwell, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott like 35 times and say, here, run it and win it for us. And they can do that. We saw that in the 2 games they've played so far. Again, and we'll talk about the defense on Wednesday. A big reason why they've won those 2 games was also because of the defense. But this is more about the offense. Those 2 games, the reason why they put up 38 and 31 points was not because of Jalen Hurts. It was because of the running. And Jalen Hurts has to do some of it. Again, he's had 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 73 rushing yards. So Jalen Hurts also has played a role. Don't get me wrong. But one thing that makes this Eagles team really dynamic is we saw in the regular season. They were 9th in passing. Jalen Hurts had an MVP caliber. He was 10th in passing yards, 14th in passing touchdowns. He was tied for 4th in interceptions. He only had 6 interceptions. He was 4th in QBR. He had a very good season in the air. So something that makes this Eagles team really dangerous. Again, and I'm going more in depth here with the Eagles because we know what the Chiefs can do. We know Mahomes can single-handedly win a game. We know they have Travis Kelce. That's what they're going to do. And it might sound like, that's hard. It might sound like, Eagles can easily stop that. No team has stopped that since Mahomes entered the league. No team has stopped Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. And I don't think it's going to happen all of a sudden on Sunday. But back to my point, the Eagles. What makes them really scary and what makes them and why they went 14-3 in the regular season and why they're where they're at right now in the Super Bowl, getting ready for Super Bowl 57, is because, yes, they can run it at you, but we saw in the regular season, again, they were a top 10 passing attack. Jalen Hurts can win a game with his arm. He can also win a game with his legs. They can also win the game giving it to their running backs. So it's interesting where if that's what makes this Eagles team so tough to stop, is if their run game, like something about the Chiefs, and this is the one only thing with them, but it's hard. Like, you stop Patrick Mahomes, you contain him, the Chiefs really struggle because they just, again, they were the 20th rushing team in football this season. They're not a very good rushing team. Pacheco's had a nice season, but he's not going to win you a game. Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, those guys can win you games. Again, we've seen it. So that's my only thing with the Eagles team, is that's what makes them so scary, is they can do a lot. They can win it through the air. Jalen Hurts can win it with his legs. They can win it with their running backs. They can do a lot. The Chiefs are more Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, it's worked. And it will probably continue to work because no team's been able to stop it. Now, if you can stop it, and that's the really hard part, is no team's been able to. But if you can stop it, that's where it gets iffy for the Kansas City. So it'll be interesting. I mean, on paper, like, when you look at these two teams, they're complete polar opposites. When you watch these two teams, they're complete polar opposites. And that's what makes this Super Bowl so intriguing, is the way these two teams, win games, the way these two teams attack you offensively. So that is day one of Super Bowl week. Again, Wednesday, I'll give you my defensive overview, which will obviously get into some numbers there. We'll get into an historic Eagles pass rush. So looking forward to doing that. We'll also obviously get to Kansas City. Kansas City, their offense is really good, which is, I think, because sometimes takes some of the light off of their defense. Their defense is really good. The Eagles' defense has been talked about all season, rightfully so. This is defense that will go down in history in terms of sacks, so we'll get to those numbers on Wednesday. And then obviously Friday will be my preview. We'll put this all together and get you my game pick and get you ready for Super Bowl 57 in Arizona. So looking forward to it. A lot more content coming your way this week on Super Bowl week. So looking forward to it. All right, so now we shift gears here to NBA and the Brooklyn Nets. So a couple days ago, Kyrie Irving requested a trade out of Brooklyn, it didn't take very long. What was it? When did he request a trade? Thursday, right? He requested a trade. Was it Thursday? Because then Friday I had my video up. Yeah, so it was Thursday, right? No, it was Friday. It was Friday he requested a trade. Requested a trade Friday, and they traded him on Sunday. So it only was about 48 hours after he requested a trade until the Nets got something done. Kyrie Irving going to the Mavericks. So the Mavericks get another guard. They get another weapon, side Luka Doncic. This is the full trade. So the Mavericks get Kyrie Irving. They also threw Markieff Morris in the deal, who barely played any with the Nets. He was just kind of a bench guy, came in occasionally, kind of just a minutes eater in a way. That's really all he did, so not really concerned about him leaving. And the Nets get Spencer Dinwiddie. He'll make his return to Brooklyn. Dorian Finney-Smith, a 2029 first-round pick, a 2027 and 2029 second-round pick. So they get 2 seconds, they get a first, they get Dinwiddie, they get Finney-Smith, and the Mavericks get Kyrie and Markieff Morris. Look, I got to admit, I was watching the Pro Bowl yesterday, which I actually thought they did a decent job with it. I actually kind of enjoyed the different stuff. I actually kind of enjoyed the flag football games. I thought it was pretty cool how they had like 3 of them. So it was kind of just endless flag football, which wasn't bad. And, you're sitting there watching the game and you hear your phone go off and you see Kyrie Irving going to the Mavericks. And the first thing I think of is, okay, who we're getting in return. Because we're not getting Luka in return, obviously. And I actually first thought of maybe we're getting Dinwiddie. And Dinwiddie, sure enough, going to the Nets. Dorian Finney-Smith didn't pop in my mind right away. But he's also coming here too. Look, here's my bland reaction. I at first yesterday didn't really know how to feel about the deal. Like when it first went down, look, I'm glad Kyrie's gone. I'll start with him first. Okay, before we even get into the deal and get into what the Nets received and what the Nets could possibly do, the Kyrie era is finally over. Okay, it was a train wreck. It was a disaster. Any bad word you want to use. Disaster, train wreck, tumultuous, bad, really bad, terrible, whatever you want to use, that describes the Kyrie Irving era, the Kyrie Irving tenure with the Brooklyn Nets. He barely played. He was barely available. We won 1 playoff series with him. We got swept. He did some stupid stuff off the court. He missed time twice for a birthday party one time, and then the other time he just randomly went missing. He missed a lot of time for the vaccine issue. He had, he was posting, stuff on, hurtful stuff on social media, all of this type of stuff. Now he requested a trade. It's over. Kyrie Irving, it was a disaster. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, the big three, at first looked so promising. Now 2/3 of it is gone, and only one remains, and it is Kevin Durant, and we'll see what happens with him. I would think he remains with the Nets. But look, again, I've been very critical of the Nets front office. They got this right. They had to trade Kyrie. He was an issue in the locker room. He had issues off the court. Like, I don't like the... Again, he's a very good player on the court, and I can't disagree. He's one of the best players in the league when he's out there. The issue is he's never available. He's never out there. I kind of feel like today, and at first, again, as a Nets fan, and I expect more moves coming, and we'll get to that here in a second. We'll get back, and we'll get into what the Nets got in return and what Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith can bring to the table, and are the Nets actually going to keep Dinwiddie, or are they going to use him in a trade package? We'll see how all that stuff plays out. A lot still has to play out from now until Thursday, February 9th, which is the actual trade deadline in the NBA. But back to my point with Kyrie Irving. Again, he was excellent on the court. Off the court, you just couldn't trust him. And there was a portion of the fan base that when you heard the trade request officially come out, and it was because of him because of the Nets not wanting to give him an extension right away, you can agree. And again, I've been very critical of the Nets front office, but they got this right. They had to get rid of him. You couldn't keep him on the roster. He said he was going to sit out. You couldn't keep him on the roster and just let him sit out for the rest of the offseason and just let him go in the offseason for nothing, because he was just going to walk in free agency for nothing. So might as well get something for him. And at first, as a Net fan, yesterday when I see the move going down, I'm like, that's all we got in return for him. But again, we have to take a step back. The Nets gained something. The Nets really gained something getting rid of him, right? They gained something getting rid of him because they got rid of, like, as a Net fan today, you kind of feel relieved. You feel a little relieved. Again, like, we're all frustrated. I'm frustrated. Believe me, like, I'm frustrated with the way this whole super team has gone. It's been a disaster. It has been. And now the Nets have got to scramble with in the next 3 days here and get this roster to the best point possible. Because at this point, all signs are pointing to Kevin Durant and the Nets front office blowing this entire thing up in the offseason, which will probably put us into a rebuild that's probably going to take a couple years, and we're going to have to suffer through a lot more years of losing. That's where we're headed. So might as well, these next 3 days, bring in the best talent possible and just make a chase at this, the final 25, 30 games of the season, however there is left. And in the offseason, you figure out where you're going. Because this year has always been kind of championship or bust with the way things have went. I think we can all kind of agree with the way this super team has went. But I think the Nets front office, too, feels a relief where you don't got to worry about Kyrie anymore. It was almost like you kind of feel relief, like you don't have him anymore. Like there's not an ego on the team now with Kyrie Irving where he can just leave the team at any point. You feel like, okay, there's guys on this team that are bought into basketball a little bit. Again, Kevin Durant, that's the one thing with KD. He's reliable. And I will say, in terms of what he does on the court, in terms of, yes, he's hurt. That part of it, he's not always reliable. But Kevin Durant's not just going to leave the team. Kyrie Irving would just leave the team. He would do stupid stuff. And we said this entire year. Things are going great. As long as Kyrie Irving and his head stays on straight and he doesn't do anything stupid, we'll be okay. Sure enough, he requests a trade. So he's out. He's gone. It was a disaster. He's gone. You feel a little relieved that he's not here anymore and that you feel like that possibility of him just leaving at any point is now gone. And I think that kind of takes a little bit of a weight off the shoulders of not only the Nets front office, but also Jacques Vaughn. I mean, it's got to be tough to manage and coach Kyrie Irving, who is just really in a world of his own with some of the stuff he does. So it's gone. And I think, look, I don't get why Nets fans today are thanking Kyrie. He did nothing for us. Kyrie did nothing for us. You see on social media today, Kyrie Irving thanked the Nets, thanked the Nets fans and stuff, which was nice, fine. Go ahead and do that. What are we thanking Kyrie for? He did nothing. He did nothing. All he did was come here and really was a big factor in why this super team failed, and now he's gone. And he basically left by saying, I don't like your contract offer, get me out of here. Again, I'll go back to what I said on Friday. all about it's me with Kyrie Irving. It's I, me. He's selfish. He doesn't care about the team. He doesn't care about what's best interest in the team. He clearly doesn't care about winning, because if he cared about winning, he would still be out there playing games for the Nets and not requesting trade because he's upset about his contract. So Kyrie's gone. Goodbye. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. It was a disaster of a tenure. I have a Kyrie t-shirt. Probably going to have to burn that because he's not going to be remembered very fondly around here. And if I had to describe one word, I would just say roller coaster, if that's even one word. Because there would be times where he would go out and his legacy will be cemented in its own area of New York sports, where when he was out there, he was good, but he never delivered a championship, and he did stupid stuff off the court, and you can never trust him. That's kind of how it is with Kyrie Irving. So goodbye. See you later. And no, I don't think why should Net fans today be thanking Kyrie? What did he do for this organization other than cause us pain for the last 3.5 years? And always missed time. The amount of games he missed was ridiculous. I saw a stat yesterday. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving combined over the last couple seasons only played 74 games together. 74 games. That's not even good enough for a full 82-game season. And I believe James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving only played, 13 games together, I think it was. It was even less with the total big three. And Evan Roberts today tweeted something out about who does a great job at WFAN. He tweeted something out. So in 3.5 years, Kyrie was here. The Nets were 82-61 in the 143 games he played, and 77-58 in the 135 games without Kyrie Irving. Let that sink in. He played 143 games. He missed 135 games. He barely played. I saw another stat the other day on Yes Network. Frank Isola and they were doing the pregame show. It was the game of the Wizards. It was the Wizards game, which, by the way, was an excellent win. Excited for, really happy for Cam Thomas. Huge game for him. 40-plus points off the bench. Edmund Sumner also got involved. That was a fun net game to watch. It was with all the Kyrie stuff going on, you were able to kind of watch that game, and you saw a bunch of guys just playing hard, wanting to play there, wanting to be there. It was a well-fought win, and they obviously got a front end of a back-to-back tonight. They got tonight, tomorrow they'll have games. But something that sticks out to me is 143-35. He only played 52% of the games while he was here. He was barely available. So goodbye, Kyrie. A disaster. And I'll tell you what, Boston fans, I understand where you're coming from booing him, because when he comes back, he deserves to be booed. He really does. It was a train wreck. So it's over for Kyrie. Now in terms of what the Nets got in return. Again, they got Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, 2029 first-round pick, and 2 second-round picks, 2027 and 2029. Again, those are, in the future. So you can do a lot with those picks. I'll start off with the picks aspect of it. My first reaction again yesterday from the move was, I was happy Kyrie's gone. I'm not in love with what we got in return, but let's be honest here. We have to settle for it. And I think my mind too is I got to adjust to the fact that we knew we weren't going to get a trade package for Kyrie Irving as we were going to get for Kevin Durant. Remember when Kevin Durant requested a trade this past summer, and we already heard an hour in, 15 teams already called the Nets on the trade, right? The Kyrie Irving is not the same thing. Because, again, teams know, he might want a contract extension. Who knows how long he's going to be here. And they know that you never know when he's unpredictable. You just don't know with him. So that's the issue where Kyrie comes in. That's the issue with trading. That's the issue with trying to find a trade partner. We heard that they were in, we heard that the Suns made an offer. We heard the Lakers made an offer. I wanted no part of Westbrook, so I'm actually glad the Nets didn't bring in Westbrook. But something about those picks, I really hope, my first thought again was, we got to be making more moves. I would assume now we're going to make more moves. And you get 3 picks now. You get a first-round pick in 2 seconds. Utilize those picks. Utilize some other pieces on the roster that you can move. And try to bring in other talent. OG Anunoby, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Pascal Siakam. Guys like that, if the Nets can bring in those guys, you start to feel better about where this roster is at. Because I will tell you this, Spencer Dinwiddie starting at point guard, although he makes his return to the Nets, he's comfortable here, he's been here before, he's not going to bring us above and beyond on a championship level. He will be our starting point guard. I'm okay with that. But this is like bringing in Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith in the trade deadline, just them two, that's not good enough. You need to bring in other pieces. So that's where I think the Nets have got to be on the phones right now. You hope Sean Marks and Joe Tsai, although you don't have much trust in them, you hope that they can try and string together a deal where we can bring in Anunoby. I would be thrilled if we brought in DeMar DeRozan or Pascal Siakam or somebody like that. You know, you've heard some names. Even Zach LaVine's popped up. I don't think we're going to get Zach LaVine, but names like that. I'm glad we geared away from Chris Paul. He's not the same player he once was. And I'm glad we geared away from Russell Westbrook. So those are two things. In terms of what Dinwiddie's bringing to the table, look, as I mentioned, you know, Dinwiddie's in the middle of a big year. He's in the middle of one of his career best seasons. You know, he's playing a lot, you know, obviously with the Mavericks, and now he'll get a chance here with the Nets. Again, and I will admit, I'm in the minority here. I was never a big Spencer Dinwiddie fan when he was here prior. I was never a huge fan of him. I really wasn't. Like, I thought when he was here, I thought he shot a lot of threes. I thought he was not very smart with the basketball at times. I know a lot of Net fans really like Dinwiddie. I was never a huge Dinwiddie fan. I didn't hate him, but he was never my favorite. Like, I think a lot of people loved him. He was never my favorite, but I'm going to have to buy in. I never hated Dinwiddie again. Like, I never hated him. I didn't really like him that much. I thought just his play style was a little weird. I thought at times he tried to do too much, and that frustrated me at times. Again, I'm not going off of any numbers. I'm just going off of kind of what I remember. But he comes back. And one thing I'll say about Dinwiddie is, and we talk about this oftentimes, like mid-season trades sometimes are tough for players because they got to adjust. They got to, you know, come in, adjust to a new team, adjust to a new locker room. Not even just on the court stuff, off the court. You know, finding a house, figuring out, you know, living situation, all that stuff. A lot goes into getting traded in the middle of the season. A lot does. And that's why trade deadline's a stressful and tough time for players, especially a guy like Dinwiddie. I'm sure he did not think he was going to be traded. You know, sure enough, he gets traded, right? It's different if you request a trade and you're expected to get traded, but a guy like Dinwiddie, I'm sure he was not expecting this. But what makes it easier transition for him and why I actually have somewhat high expectations for him is he's comfortable here. He's been here, right? He was a Net for 5 seasons, right? So he's played with a lot of these guys. He's played with Claxton. He's played with Harris. He's played with KD. He's played with all these guys. He Jock Vaughn. He knows Jock Vaughn. He knows the locker room. He knows the front office. He knows the organization. He's comfortable here. So I don't think there will be much of a growing period with him, considering, you know, he's played with Joe Harris too. I think I mentioned him too. He's played with a lot of these guys. He knows a lot of these guys. He's close with a lot of these guys. You know, as crazy as it sounds, he's only been with the Mavericks for 2. He's only been removed for the Nets for 2 years. Only 2 years. Because you remember Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving's, he got hurt that year. Obviously, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving's first year, he got hurt. Then the big three came in. He barely played and stuff. I think he played a little bit in the playoffs, and then he got traded. So he's not here last season. Now he's back. So he only really missed 1 year. I know it seems like Dinwiddie's been gone forever now. He only was really gone for 1.5 years, and now he's back. So he knows a lot about, the team this season. He's shooting at a 45.5% clip. He's putting up 17 points per game. He'll be our starting point guard. You know, he can dish the ball a little bit. You know, he's putting up 5.3 assists per game. You know, he's not going to, you know, his 3-point percentage, 40.5, which is actually actually a career high for him this season. The last 2 years, he's added over 40%, which is definitely a positive. So his 3-point percentage has been a little bit better. Again, he's comfortable. And that's one thing I'll say about Dinwiddie is we know him as Net fans. We know what we're going to expect. And I think part of the reason why the Nets wanted Dinwiddie in return is they know what they're going to get out of him. He's been here. He was here for 5 seasons, and he's only really been gone for 1 year. Because if you remember, he was with the Wizards, then he got traded to the Mavericks last year at the deadline, and then this season he was with the Mavericks. Now he's back with the Nets. So and the part of that's because of the Nets, and part of it's because he missed a lot of the 2020-2021 season with injuries and stuff. But a lot of the reason why we act like it's been 5 years since we've seen him is because all of the stuff that's gone on with the Nets. Like, if you think about it, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant's first year together was only like 2 years ago. It was only 1.5 years ago, really. Because Kyrie Irving's first year was obviously the 2019-2020 season, which got cut off due to COVID. Kevin Durant missed that year, obviously, because of the Achilles. Then 2020-2021, the big three got formed and all that good stuff. They got to the Eastern Conference semifinals, and they lost in 7 games to the Bucks. Then last year, like that was only like a year and a half ago. Because then last year, obviously James Harden wanted out. We traded him. That's when the disaster begun. Because then we got swept. And this season, Steve Nash gets fired. Now Kyrie's getting traded. Kevin Durant requested a trade in the offseason. Like, this big three, and that's what's so frustrating. This big super team has really only been together for like 2 years, and all of this has already happened, and this has already collapsed. So, in terms of Dorian Finney-Smith, look, you're getting a 3-and-D guy. That's what you're getting. You're getting a guy that's going to play defense. He's going to put up 10, 11 points per game. That's about what you're getting. I think he's putting up 9 per game. He definitely he topped up in some trade rumors with the Nets. He's a 3-and-D guy. He'll play defense. The Nets got better defensively because Dinwiddie's solid defensively. He's not as good of a, he's not going to put up 28 a night. He's not a dominant scorer. I think the Nets need to find another scorer because Kevin Durant's your main scorer. Dinwiddie's not going to score at, he's putting up 17 a game. He's not going to score at an incredibly high clip. The Nets got a lot better. I look at this as they're a very good defensive team. For the last couple years, it's been the opposite. They've been really bad defensively, really good offensively. They've gone a lot. Finney-Smith, very good defensively. Dinwiddie, very good defensively. He's one of the better defensive guards in the league. They're not going to score at a high clip right now, but that's why they need to go out and make more moves because they need to bring in more scoring. Outside of Kevin Durant, there's not a ton of scoring right now with this team. So that's how I see it. Dinwiddie's back. Dorian Finney-Smith comes in. I know you heard some rumors about Dinwiddie possibly being used in trades. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't because, again, okay, if you trade Dinwiddie, who's going to be your starting point guard then? That's the issue I have there. Dinwiddie, your starting point guard. And when Ben Simmons comes back, you assume right now when Ben Simmons comes back, your lineup probably looks something like Simmons, Dinwiddie, KD, Royce, Claxton. That's probably where you're at. That's probably your 5. So it's okay. Anunoby, DeRozan, throw one of them in there. It looks a lot better. And then your bench is guys like Harris, Utah, Seth, TJ Warren, who I know missed the other night, but Cam, guys like that. And who knows, maybe they trade Joe. But I think the thought process, and I think we can all kind of agree on this, with the Nets here was you gather those picks, bring in the 3 picks, first and 2 seconds, utilize those now for other resources. And it has to, because let's be honest, this Nets roster right now is not even close, is not even going to sniff a championship. It's probably going to be another first-round exit. They need to make more moves. So we'll see. But Kyrie's gone, finally. I think we're happy about it. Never worked out. Never was going to work out. He requested a trade. Get him out of here. Didn't want to be here. And Kyrie Irving will go down as one of the biggest failed New York sports experiments. That's the bottom line. So, see you later, Kyrie. And it was a disaster. So that's what I got to say about Kyrie Irving. And welcome back, Dinwiddie. And Dorian Finney-Smith comes in with the Brooklyn Nets, and we'll see Dinwiddie returns. Maybe Dinwiddie gives us a little magic from the old days. Maybe he gives us a little magic. We'll see. And Nets still need another front, another guy, another back, like another center behind Clax, and some more scoring. So they still got a lot more work to do here over the course of the next couple days. I don't think their work's done here yet. I don't. And that's my biggest takeaway from the deal. My biggest takeaway, I'm not going to sit here and dissect what Dinwiddie's going to bring to us. Why I'm trying to stay calm, and a lot of Net fans, and again, that's why I don't really know how to react right now. Again, I'm glad Kyrie's gone, but in terms of the package we got back, it's not great, but again, we have to realize we weren't going to get a ton for Kyrie, based off of what he did here and the concerns about him, which are all very serious concerns about when, his reliability and how many games is he going to play in his contract and all that stuff. Teams aren't going to go all in on a guy if they're only going to have him for the rest of the season, and that's the concern. So I'm not so much about the package. I'm more, the Nets have holes. They got to fill them. So I think overall, after the deadline hits, that's when we can really grade what the Nets did. If you follow what I'm saying, that's when we can really deep dive, dissect this roster, and when all's said and done at the trade line, that's when you can really grade what getting Dinwiddie really does for us. Dorian Finney-Smith, how do we utilize those picks in these, how do we utilize those picks? Do we use these picks and bring in other talent? So that's why I think really comes into play with this Net team right now. So we'll see. We'll see, but I hope and assume there's more moves coming. All right, so now we move on to the rest of the NBA games tonight. Wizards, Cavs, Pistons, Celtics, Kings, Rockets, Spurs, Bulls, Mavericks, Jazz, Bucks, Trailblazers, Thunder, Warriors, and the Nets, Clippers tonight at Barclays Center. So the Nets will be at Barclays tonight. No Dinwiddie. I don't know when Dinwiddie will come. I think Kyrie's doing his physical today. Dinwiddie will probably, I have no clue when Dinwiddie's going to play. By the way, LeBron said today, I can't sit here and say I'm not disappointed on being able to land someone that can help you win championships. So LeBron's upset. He's been posting some cryptic tweets on social media about about Kyrie Irving and missing out on him. I thought the Lakers were going to get him. Part of the reason why, and Joe Tsai did this purposely, he didn't want to trade Kyrie to his preferred destination. Because of what he did here, there's no reason why you should trade Kyrie to his preferred destination. He doesn't deserve it. Ship him away to a random team that he doesn't want to be in so he can suffer there. That's the main thing with Kyrie. That's how I look at it. All right, so now we go on to the NHL games tonight. You got Flyers, Islanders, Lightning, Panthers, Canucks, Devils, Stars, Ducks, and the Wild Coyotes. And the Rangers, Flames tonight at the Garden. So good amount of sports on tonight. A lot going on. You got trade deadline this week for the NBA. You got Super Bowl. So a lot going on. So stay tuned. A lot more content coming. We will see what more the Nets do. Do the Knicks get involved in any trades? Do they move Cam Reddish, which is obviously a rumor right now? So a lot more to cover. A lot more happening. And, officially kicking off Super Bowl week. So good podcast in the books here on a Monday. And you know the drill. I'll see you all back here on Wednesday. I'll do the Chiefs and Eagles defensive preview then. If there's any other big moves in the NBA, I'll also be covering it there. And, stay tuned. A lot more content coming, as always. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.